in case they don't come, but at least they'll be able to hear
good.
what you've got to say.
Excellent.
So,
let me dive into it.
okay. Yeah.
So the first question you asked was, what benefits we expect from engaging with City to City? What we do is largely developed around revitalisation. So the three projects we're working on in New Zealand at the moment give you a good indication of the different ways we might work with you. So we're working with a group in Auckland at the moment, Anglicans, and what they want us to do is they want to journey with us for 5 years and start with about 8 to 10 churches. And what they really want to do is multiply. They want all of those churches to plant new churches. So the commitment for us is to train them year on year, to develop their teams, to prepare them, and then train the church planters and then plant a church. So we're gonna walk with them for 5 years and turn 8 to 10 into 16 to 20 churches. And that'll be having a consultant for every church, walking with them, training them, leading them, coaching them, right through that process. So that's one side of the equation. In Nelson, we're quite a way down the track now. So in Nelson, we did what we call a denominational consultation. So I was the consultant here. And so I came and worked with the diocese to get a good look of all the churches, all of the support structures, all of the training, everything that was happening within the diocese, including looking at every church. And then we wrote a report. We did a lot of workshops with them around trying to analyze where the churches were so that we could see, from a church that was a rural church that had 15 people in it, what do we do with them, right through to the church that's up to nearly 200 people and is thinking about what next. So very diverse city, urban, country. And so then what we did with them is we delivered a report with recommendations. And actually today is where the rubber really hits the road for that. So our recommendation was to start this program called Revitalise Nelson, where we're going to do a review of and consultation of every single church in the diocese. So 23 churches, as well as one church that will be a church plant. And they will have a consultant, same process. We'll go through, look at the church, look at their finances, take surveys, look at all the demographics. We'll do SWOT analysis. We'll do a vision with them, help them to revision where they're going forward. Excuse me. Then we'll do training with them. So we've got a training program to train the leadership team in revitalisation. And so we'll walk with each church for 12 months, helping them to revitalise and work on some of those areas. So they're the kind of two areas. Then the third area is working with individual churches. So again, in Auckland, we've got 4 churches, all independent from one another, who are operating as pilot churches for a program we're doing, which we call, in Australia, it's called Revitalise Australia. Here it's called Revitalise New Zealand, Aotearoa. And so what we're doing is those churches have opted in to do phase 1 and 2. So phase 1 and 2 is, like I said just a moment ago, collecting data, analysing the data, visiting those churches, spending times with them. Then we end up, through all that process, we spend a lot of time on the ground with them. We write a report with recommendations. And then at the end of phase 2, they accept those recommendations and then they make a decision whether to go to phase 3 or not. So a church might say, we've got this wonderful report. We totally agree this is where we need to go. But we feel like we can do it on our own. And they might opt in and go, but we'd love for you to do some coaching, or we'd love for you to do a bit of training on evangelism like Julianne Laird does, anything like that. Most churches opt for please walk with us for 12 months to implement this report and these changes. and that's what we do. The consultant then coaches the leader, and we then implement some of those things. So we might have Julianne come and do evangelism. We might have Cameron Munro come and do ministry systems. We might have somebody else come and do revision. We might have someone else come and do, many churches we work with have a lot of conflict. And so we have Ed Vaughan, who's a specialized consultant in lament and healing, helping churches kind of let go of the past and move to the future. There's a whole swathe of things, financial management. So we have a consultant that works in helping churches to grow their giving in the church. So there's a whole swathe of things that implementations that we can do. So all of those things said, what you can expect out of this. So when we do right through to phase 3 with churches, we give a money back guarantee. And so City to City says, if your giving doesn't increase by what it's cost you in the 12 months that we're doing the intervention phase, we'll give you your money back. So for instance, if you've got your report now, you'd signed on and said, yes, we want to go, excuse me, and said, we want to go, then we start next week. We'd look at what your financial giving is as of next week. And then in 12 months' time, the $10,000 that costs, if your giving hadn't increased by 10, say your giving had increased by 7,000, we'd give you $3,000 back. So we'd give you the difference between what your giving was and what it cost you. So that's what we call skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
It works best where all parties have got skin in the game.
So Jamie, let me introduce Margie, who's just come in from the farm.
Hi, Margie.
Hi, Margie.
Hello.
So, Margie, we are recording this. So Jamie's just given a bit of a rundown on things he's doing with around other parts of New Zealand with different churches in terms of, what sort of thing might be useful for us as well. So,
okay, my apologies. It's quite a day today.
It's
are you farming, Margie?
Yes.
Cows?
We are. Cows, indeed. Yes, I've just been feeding calves.
Oh, good on you. Yeah, there's a lot of calves around. I've noticed. We drove out through a place called Apawa Station. We've got friends there, and there was calves everywhere. Yeah. Let me keep going.
Jamie, can I just ask the one the last one you mentioned in Auckland, working with 4 or 5 independent churches, that's different from the work you're doing with the Auckland Presbytery at the moment?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. None of those projects I've mentioned are to do with the Presbytery. The Presbytery, we're looking to do work with them, but we haven't started yet. We're getting pretty close though. We've got a very solid proposal put together, and they will be looking at that with a hope to make a decision. Right. The Northern Presbytery are looking at, we're doing a 3-stage program with them. And that is, stage 1 would be for us to do the work and they watch. Stage 2 would be for us to kind of do it together. And then stage 3 would be them doing it and us watching. So we're looking to train up a team. And obviously I think, it'd be really good for you guys to be talking to them, because particularly that stage 1, where we're doing and you're watching, that could be the stage where it'd be really great if you have, 1, 2, 3, 4 churches that were able to come onto the process. It would just work really well together, because then as the Northern Presbytery gets trained up, they're planning at stage 2 and 3 to actually train somebody nationally across New Zealand. So that person would be able to help you as well.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
So what you can expect out of this, so I just mentioned, Margie, that Margie, is that right?
That's right. Yes.
I just mentioned that we give a money back guarantee for this program because we want to have skin in the game. We want our consultants to feel an ownership of this program. It's not like we're just flying a plane over you, dropping bombs on you, telling you what to do. We're actually walking with you in partnership, and so we want to have skin in the game. We're working with 100 nearly 140 churches now. We've never given anyone their money back. And that's because what we see is spiritual health equals financial growth. It just, we don't like talking about money, but the reality is when people mature as Christians, when churches mature and revitalize, giving increases. It's just a natural element of what happens. And increasingly, some people are looking at spiritual vitality as an effective way of looking at church health. And it's one of the things that seems to be a pretty good measurement of how a church is going. But we don't like talking about it. But there you are. So what you would expect to see, one of the things that we're really big on is developing a program that goes for, probably about 15 months we walk with a church for total. When we finish that process, the church has tools and processes in place for long-term strategic ministry. And so we want to leave a church in a place where we don't need to come back in another 12 months. It's quite the opposite. We don't want to come back, but we certainly touch base ongoing. Every 3 months we check in and look at if there's anything else we can help with. But largely we just want to help the church to grow and be sustainable into the future in their own right. So that's our model. Most of we work with churches, from churches that are, should we shut the doors, right through to we're looking to plant. I guess one of the stories that one of the first churches we worked with was in a tiny little town called Wynyard in Tasmania, and they were down to about 18 people in their traditional service. And they haven't exploded. It's not like they have 200 people in their church now, but they planted a new contemporary service, and they have about 30 people in that new contemporary service, and they now have about 30 people in their traditional service. So they've gone from a church below 20 to a church of about 50 or 60. And their financial situation is much better now. And they're in the local school doing a mentoring program, and they've cut probably about, I would say, of about 15 activities they were doing as a church, they're now doing 5. But those 5 are really effective ministries. And that was one of the big jobs we did with them, is to navigate all of the ministry they're doing, help them get a really clear vision of what they're trying to achieve, and then put everything through that lens of their vision and strategic plan. That's been the big shift for them. And they've seen people come to faith, and it's really great. So the other thing to say about that is every single church we work with, we have a big focus on doing contextualized ministry. So we don't do any cut and paste. Everything we do is about what is God calling this church in this place, in this time to do. Every church is individual. Every church is different. The cut and paste model was proven not to work. And our Pentecostal brothers and sisters in Australia have been doing this, and it's been failing. They just go, we've got this church of 400 people. Let's just send 200 people down the road and do the same thing. And it just doesn't work. And it might be different for you guys, but in Australia, you can go 5 minutes down the road and find a completely different context where people are in a different situation. So that's how we operate. Your second question was, how do you see it working? What would engagement look like?
I guess that's part, you and I have talked before, but that's partly recognizing that this is a regional thing, potentially.
Yep.
And maybe not all churches want to be part of it. Maybe they do. Who knows?
Absolutely.
Diversity in terms of context and in terms of theology.
So what we always recommend, and we intentionally keep the costs very low for stage 1. Stage 1 is often to come and just spend time traveling around, speaking to vicars, leaders, staff, whatever is in your denominational regional context. And we normally do that and write a pretty, I want to say clouty. Does that make sense to you? It's quite really straight to the point kind of report, and kind of says, this is your context, this is how this would work, this is what we think you should do. Because if you just go straight into the phase of just find 4 churches to do pilot projects without understanding the context, it just doesn't work as well. So we normally suggest that you get a consultant on the ground for 3 or 4 days who comes over, a representative ideally from your region. They drive around, visit as many people as they can, maybe have a group meeting where you bring some core people in together in a room and do what we call a SWOT analysis around a preferred future. So kind of say, this is where we want to get in 5 years. And then you kind of look at the strengths and weaknesses inside the system, what's inside our system. And then you look at the opportunities and threats outside the system. Excuse me, I've got a tickly throat this morning. And so what we do is from that, we would write a report with recommendations. It's possible, but very unlikely that report would say, us doing work here won't work. We're not the right people. I think that's pretty unlikely. Most likely the report would say, here's the things you need to address. And it might be, so one diocese denomination we've just worked with, the number one recommendation to them was, you need to work on your leadership. You need to invest in your leaders. Your leaders are not trained at the level to do revitalisation. You've got great leaders, but they're just not trained to do this work. Let us help you do that first, and then we'll do the next phase. And that's just been so great. It's been a real aha moment, because as those leaders are starting to learn, they're saying to us, if we'd have gone ahead, we would have fallen flat because we wouldn't have known what to do. Our recommendation might be, to invest in youth ministry. Our recommendation might be so we'll make recommendations about your situation, and then we'll give a proposal about working with individual churches. And we would suggest at that stage, you invite churches to be part of a pilot project and say, look, we'd love to give this a go. And we want to have a go at doing this process of Revitalise Aotearoa New Zealand, and get 4 churches to go through that process and see what the outcomes are, because then everyone else can kind of look in on that. And it might only be 2 churches, but 4 is a good number to work with. So that's how the process works. That first stage, like I said, we try and keep the cost pretty low. And so normally it's just, it's really at what it costs us to do it. That's what you'll see in that initial proposal. And that would largely be one of the senior consultants, normally me, but sometimes one of the other senior consultants coming and spending probably 4 days on the ground. We say we want to keep costs low because we know how churches work. And so we always say to people, if you've got someone that we could stay with, a minister that we could stay with, and we learn more from that and keep costs on, we're really happy to do all of that kind of stuff. And so normally it's flights, car hire, and accommodation. That's pretty much what we charge. And it's just because that's what it costs us to do it. And so the reason we do that at a low cost is because that helps you and us make the decision whether if this is a viable thing moving forward. And so it saves us all a lot of heartache later on. And so we believe that first step is really important. Certainly that's in the proposal for the Northern Presbytery. And we do it with most every denomination we work with. there's a lot of information there. So I'd love to leave a bit of time for you to ask as many questions as you want.
Yeah, so Lynn and Margie, what questions do you have? I was just wondering, Jamie, while they're thinking, do you also work like with the regional body, in our case, the presbytery, as opposed to individual churches?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We do everything. So we work with the Presbyterians in Tasmania and in South Australia, and we work regionally with them. So we work with their regional representatives, and then we work with the individual churches.
Mm-hmm.
And often those two things are not connected in the Presbyterian Church in Australia. And so while there's a regional body that we work with and kind of make recommendations, it's not like they can then say, okay, I want you, and you to go through this process. Yeah. It has to be an opt-in thing. That's our scenario. And so we work with both. Yep. And that phase one, that stage one, I would suggest that would be at the regional level. And so we would be working with you as a regional kind of entity to try and look at the whole situation. And that's where that report would be handed. And then it would be about trying to get some churches to opt into the process with your endorsement, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So stage one is kind of the big view analysis. Stage
That's
two is the more fine-tuned analysis of particular churches. Stage three is walking with those churches,
implementation,
address whatever's been identified.
Absolutely, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah, so that stage one is literally normally working with a regional body or a diocese or a leadership group over a denomination, whatever it may be. But we want to meet with as many churches, ministers as we can, because we want to get a really good understanding of all the different contexts. We want to meet with a very small church in a small town. We want to meet with, home churches if they're happening. We want to meet with all sorts of different things, depending on what your context is. We really like to drive around a bit, just go and meet people and just hear what, because our job in a sense is to find out what people want and need and try and give that to them. Because here's the thing, and this is always our catchphrase: we believe God is planting his plans in the hearts of the people in your context. Like it's possible that God is planting his plans for the Southern Presbytery in my heart, but it's more likely he's doing that through you. And so our job is to try and hear that from your people and then try and navigate how we get them from this vision in their hearts to practical implementation. And making sure that they feel an ownership of that, because it's a really key thing. If people don't feel like they have this ownership, gospel confidence becomes low. Yeah.
Okay. Are there other questions?
Just thinking, if the phase two, for want of a better word, churches, there's no onus on them then teaching others in the presbytery or the group? No,
it's your call how you want to do it. Ideally, and city to city always tries to find a local person to invest in during the process. So we try and walk them through what we do. We bring them in. They're the local contact. They're the one chasing up the churches to make sure we have the information we need. In Nelson, in Nelson at the moment, that's a guy called Simon Martin, who you might know. So he's the bishop's chaplain here. In the Northern Presbytery, that'll probably be Dr. Emma Cowan. Kewen. We try and have somebody locally that we can invest in, but there's no onus on those parishes. What we want to try and do is give the local churches the information and the training, and then there's no onus on them to help others, but we do hope that they would influence others. Yes.
Yes.
And the approach that the Northern Presbytery is taking is that they actually want to be trained so that they can be doing this themselves.
That's right.
So that's an option as well.
That's right. And they're doing the training at the level, like the level of that person who's we're investing in. And so it won't be so much the churches themselves that'll be doing the training. It'll be a group of people that they're going to appoint to get trained and work with us, and then they'll be able to do this work ongoing.
Yep. Maggie,
Sorry. What sort of training have you had in order to do this?
Yeah, that's great. So every single one of our consultants have operated churches. So I'm probably a really classic example of almost all of our consultants. So my background is business management. So I worked as a consultant in business. The last project I did was in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabian government had a company had basically gone broke. They were making a decision if they wanted to restart the business or shut it down. And I went in and overhauled the whole business, from HR to strategy to processes to financial management to everything. And so that's my background. The Lord decided to drag me out of that into ministry, and so I went from there to I've planted 2 ministries. A church, small church, grew to about 90 people in Tasmania, and a bigger one. And then I'm a minister. I've been a minister of a church that was in this process of revitalisation. From we're going to shut down, and I took on that ministry, and then I've grown that through to it's in excess of 100 people now, and it's just planted a new ministry itself. So all of our consultants have done this work. We don't employ consultants who don't have cred in the game, might I say. And so aside from that, I've also worked with a working group in Tasmania for 3 years, developing a program called Multiply Tas. You could Google that, you'll see the videos of it. And that was localized with City to City. We partnered with City to City, and we did this very thing that I'm talking about with you. And we've now worked with 24 churches across Tasmania, and they've all grown. And so lived experience. So all of our consultants, every consultant, the bios for consultant are available online. We then went to do consultancy training for revitalisation. So we've done a lot of this work. So we did a 12-month program called Incubator, which trains us in how to train other people and how particularly to do things like ministry systems, how to help churches get ministry systems in place, like what we call drawing in, how to draw in people into the church, how to reach out to community, and how to grow people up spiritual maturity. We do all the training that you might get, so from evangelism through to preaching incubator and all those kinds of things. So yeah, every consultant is very heavily trained, specifically trained to do this work. And for what it's worth, I think all of our consultants have consultancy backgrounds. And again, for me, I remember when I became a Christian, I did wonder how God was going to use all of that business background I had. But now that, it's pretty obvious now, but that's true for most of our consultants. Most of them have worked at this level, and they're all very different for different contexts. We have consultants who, I have a lot of rural experience working with a lot of rural churches. but have worked in city churches as well. We have another guy whose expertise is networks, so working with network of churches. We have a Chinese consultant who works with churches who might be trying to reach Chinese in their context. We have Julianne Laird, who works as a consultant. She works with a lot of women ministers because you can just kind of help relate to them in a better way. So we try and cover all our contexts as best we can.
You talked about the costs during stage 1 as being kept as low as possible. What do they look like for stages 2 and 3?
Yeah, so our general costing, we have 2 pricing schedules. One is churches can opt to just do phase 1 and 2 of Revitalise New Zealand. And that's $3,000, but that doesn't include the revision. So, and we almost always recommend it does. And so, with the revision process, it's $5,000 per church. What we do though with churches, if for instance, if you had 4 churches come on at once, we would discount that pretty significantly. Mm-hmm. So it's normally. If one church just opts in to do this process, it's $5,000, but some churches do say we just want to get a handle on what's going on, so a review. So in the Diocese of Nelson, because we're committed to doing work ongoing, we only did phase 1 and 2, which was $3,000 per church, and that was just to do all of the review stuff, deliver a report, and then nothing else, because the diocese just wanted a handle on where every single church was. That next part, the revision, is what really helps churches, so that we can kind of leave them with this really good package for them to then move on. And that's generally $5,000 per church.
Yep.
That first phase is kind of hard, but if we feel like this has got some legs and we want to keep exploring it, we'd just put a proposal together for you, which would step all of this out pretty clearly, so that you would understand what that would look like, and what the discounts would be, and what the cost would be for that first phase, first stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can I just see if I'm understanding? So stage 1 and 2 is like 3,000, and then
we're talking stages and phases, and I should just step back from that. So stage 1 would be just coming in and helping you. That would be dependent on what it costs for flights and accommodation. That would just be your consultant coming and looking at things. Stage 2 is phase 1 and 2 of what we call Revitalise Aotearoa New Zealand, and that would be 3,000 without revision, which is the visioning process for a church, and 5,000 with revision.
Okay. I got confused there.
And then the next phase of stage 2 is phase 3, and that costs $10,000. Us coming and training and implementing and coaching for 12 months, walking with you for 12 months, and that $10,000 comes with a money back guarantee if your giving doesn't increase by that amount of money, $10,000.
Yep.
And you've got something that you can send through with all of those, right?
Yeah. And we'd work towards a proposal that's specific to you. But I'll send you the basic information through. I've got it on a PowerPoint. I'll just send you one of those slides so you can look at it on a 1-pager.
Sounds good.
And we'd look at doing a proposal just for you, because we would look at your context and kind of understand the process. And so I would give you a proposal that would have stage 1, 2, and 3 in it, and that would clearly outline the costs and the amount of time we'd be spending with you and what that would look like.
So this is probably more for Peter. That initial stage would be presbytery level if we were to pursue this?
I would think so. Get the overview and see where that takes us.
And then if there were more than 4 churches putting their hand up, what would happen then?
That's no problem. It'd be no problem to do more. But 4 is a good number. And the reason I say that is because it makes it cost effective for us, and therefore we can discount it.
Yes.
And so we can start getting the cost down once you get to 4 churches, because a consultant can kind of, come and visit 4 churches is a pretty good number to be able to work through and writing reports and things. And it just makes it cost effective.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing 1, for instance, the flights, everything is all on 1 church.
Yeah.
So we just try and keep that efficiency of costs for your sake, really.
But if
I
you
guess
were doing 10,
Sorry?
but if you were doing 10, how would that work?
It's no problem. Yeah, no, because then all of a sudden, look, if you were doing 10, again, you would have further discounted costs because we can then manage it like a project. And so we can plan ahead when things are happening, all that kind of stuff. It makes our life easier. If we're working with 1 church, at the one other end of the spectrum, it's just so cost ineffective because we're just going to be,
I just was
start
thinking
sharing a flight between 5 or 6 churches.
Yeah.
Costs come down.
our presbytery is reasonably spread geographically, but there's such a range of parishes within it as well.
Yeah, and that's fine. We generally work geographically because that just works for a consultant to go and stay in that area and travel a bit. We don't mind traveling. So in Nelson, we've been doing it in the 4 deanery areas, and that helps. There's still a bit of travel, but it's not too bad. I mean, this trip I'm doing 4 churches. I've been up to Picton and I've been up to Motueka, so we've done a bit of travel, but it's not too bad. We just make it work. The more churches that sign on initially, the better for you. Keeps the costs low for them.
Yeah. Well, we really need to let you go. Sorry, Maggie.
I was just, and you may already have, the cost for stage 1 is, what is for that presbytery level? What is the costing for that?
Yeah, so it would be, in a basic form, it would be flights plus accommodation plus car hire, and then that would pretty much be it. We'd probably put some costs associated with the consultant, food, whatever it costs us. We don't charge the daily rates on top of that for that initial phase, because we want to encourage people to do that. I imagine at a very raw level that it would probably be, depending on the amount of time spent away, it's probably going to be around 3,000, but that's a guess, Margie. I really am guessing there. I would go away and look at that. And it depends on the amount of time that the person would be working. So I think it normally works out about $200 a day for that person. So normally consultants are charged out at around 600 a day or something like that. But I think it's about 200 a day because they can do other work while they're there. So we try and keep the costs low for that one. So my guess is somewhere between, if they were spending, say, 4 days there, somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 would be my guess, and it's only a guess, but I can confirm that for you.
Yep. Okay, it's after 2:45, so you really need to start thinking about
I better go.
Your next engagement, and do appreciate you giving us this time and all the information.
Yeah, absolutely. And just mull on it, chew on it, let me know. And if you think you want to at least move to a proposal for that stage 1, if you feel like that's something you want to start thinking about, then I can draw something up for you to look at, and we can go from there.
Okay, be brilliant.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah.
No worries. Lovely to meet you all.
Yeah, well, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Talk soon.
Yep.
Thank you.